Well, it is a pleasure to be joined by the Executive Director of College Hockey Inc., Paul Kelly. And Paul, the NHL Draft's wrapping up on Saturday. Do you finally have time now that summer is here to actually sit back and catch your breath?
Well, a little bit, Steve. It's been a busy period for us, but we have another busy period coming up here later in the month. We have the select festivals where we bring in the top kids into Rochester, for an event run by USA Hockey, and then our August is very busy with a whole series of educational initiatives and marketing initiatives. So, but we're happy to enjoy a couple of weeks of a little bit quieter time.
But I also suspect you're happiest when you're on the road, whether it's at the NHL Draft or the camps or anything involving college hockey.
No question. Yeah, we are. We're the kind of people that it's important in our work to be out there doing it. Meeting the people, being involved in the events directly. Yeah, this is not the kind of job that can be done from behind a desk.
Let's get right into it. As I said, the NHL Draft this past weekend, and for the sixth straight year, more than 60 college players drafted. So obviously, things are being done right at the college level.
Well, we certainly think so. I mean, we think that the teams that took college players and college-bound players, will really benefit from those selections. And we obviously would like to see more teams taking these players in the first and second round. I mean, last year we had a record-setting year in terms of the number of players that were taken in the first round, 11 or so players. This year, that number come down a little bit. Overall, we actually have the same number of players taken in the most recent draft as we have in last year's draft. But we actually think that some of those players that got taken in the second, third, fourth rounds are guys that certainly are of the same caliber as many of the players taken in the first and second rounds, and that those teams that took those guys got great value, and that those players will turn out to be terrific professional players in the NHL in the years to come. So, but our developmental programs at the USHL, at the national program, at some of the prep schools around, certainly the Minnesota high schools are doing a great job preparing and developing kids for college, and most certainly our college coaches are doing an excellent job of developing not only future NHL players, but future citizens. I think things are on the right track.
Having said that, let me play devil's advocate, I suppose. How concerned is College Hockey Inc. when you read about a Jamie Alexiak, freshman at Northeastern this past season, the first college player taken by Dallas in spot number 14, and now there's reports that he's considering maybe leaving Northeastern. Is there a concern that when the college players or college-bound players are drafted that high, that they may forego their college experience to turn pro?
Well, it really depends on the team that takes them. And now Jamie's situation is a little bit more complex because, of course, Greg Cronin has just announced that he's leaving Northeastern University to take a position with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
And I know that he was integral in Jamie making his decision to go to Northeastern. Greg had been involved in the Islanders organization and kind of helped to develop Zdeno Chara into the tremendous defenseman that he is today. And since Jamie is that same type of a body type, that big, 6'7" player, I mean, that was a factor in his decision. And so I think that part of that is what's weighing on Jamie's decision. We obviously hope that he stays at Northeastern and think that it would be the best thing for him. But what we found generally is that there are some teams, Detroit comes to mind, Pittsburgh comes to mind, that want to have their players stay in school and develop, for as long as possible and for as long as the player is comfortable, particularly if they're in those programs that have historically done a really good job of developing NHL players. There are other NHL organizations, unfortunately, that do pull their players out a little bit early and like to have more control over those players and like to have them playing for their minor league franchises, whether they be in the American Hockey League or the East Coast Hockey League, and those actions do concern us, and we've had conversations with a number of GMs of those teams that have engaged in that type of conduct, because we frankly think that the colleges do an outstanding job of developing players, and we also think it's helpful for future NHLers to have that maturity, to have that educational background, to have that time to develop as people as well as athletes.
Back in February, I talked to Ryan Miller in Buffalo when I was there when Mr. Pagula bought the Sabres. And Ryan told me after winning the Hobey Baker in 2001, he went back to Michigan State for his junior year because he felt he wasn't ready to make the move to the NHL. And I think that's the case for a lot of youngsters. I know Bob McKenzie, TSN Hockey Insider, his son Mike wasn't ready for the OHL, and he ended up going to St. Lawrence and had a great 4-year career there. So certainly, as Bob told me, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
No, it's true, and frankly, we've had situations even recently where players have announced that they're leaving college after a couple of years, where the NHL team was very troubled by the decision and have actually appealed to the player to stay in school, that the pro team don't feel that the player's ready and think that the player is doing just fine where he's at, and he's developing and he's getting ice time and he's taking time, in the weight room and becoming bigger and stronger. So sometimes it's just a player, these guys that are anxious, to get their career started, and they have this impression that, they've got to get that career underway, because an NHL career still is relatively short in duration. But what they don't seem to understand is that what the statistics show is that guys that stay in school 3 or 4 years that go on to the NHL actually end up having longer careers in the National Hockey League than those that leave school early and jump into the NHL. And what I think is the explanation for that is that they are more mature. They're much more mature physically. They're more mature psychologically. And that helps them kind of endure and withstand what is a very challenging experience to be an NHL player. So, kids really, shouldn't be jumping out early. They should take the opportunity to develop. But when they're ready, they'll know it. They're certainly their college coaches will know it. And as Red Berenson is fond of saying, look, when I know I've got a player who's ready for the National Hockey League, I will drive him to the airport. And there are lots of examples of that. I know that Dave Hackstall at North Dakota literally had to push Jonathan Toews out the door. Johnny wanted to come back for a third year, but it was clear to the coaching staff that he was ready to play in the National Hockey League. And the coaching staff said, look, Johnny, you've done all you can do here at North Dakota. You should go.